Recording live from northwest suburbs of Minneapolis. This is Twin Cities Affiliates. I'm the host and the creator, Coop DeVille, aka LaShawn. And on this episode, I am very, very excited. I am going to have I like to call them my cousin uncle and my cousin aunt. They're technically my cousins, but they're my dad's cousins. So I look at them as uncle and aunt figures. But yeah, my cousin James Morris Sr. and his wife, my cousin Tommy Joe Morris, out of Pearl, Mississippi. And for those that might know me, these are my family members that gave the eulogy at my dad's funeral. And I'm very excited to have them on here. They own their own Christian bookstore, which is called Milestone Christian Bookstore in Pearl, Mississippi. Very popular spot. Look them up. And they have been one of the people that in my family that I've always looked up to, just like other family members, for spiritual guidance, and history and all kind of other things, family history and family functions. So I wanted to get them on here so we can talk about what's going on, especially up in here in Minnesota with the tension and the trials and the killing of Daunte Wright and everything like that. So without any further ado, I want to bring my family on the show here. All right, I am so excited for today's episode. I like to call them my cousin uncle and cousin aunt, because that's what they are. They're my cousins. They're my dad's cousins. Well, my cousin Tommy Joe is my dad's cousin, but you guys were like sister and brother, which makes you my cousin aunt. And then her husband makes him my cousin uncle. So yes. Introducing my cousin uncle James Morris and my cousin aunt Tommy Joe Morris. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, we're glad to be here.
We're so glad to be here.
So glad to be here.
In the Twin City. Huh?
Y'all looking good in your colors and everything.
Yeah, thank you.
That's right.
So yeah, I'm really excited for cousin Tommy Joe for you reaching out to me, because I think it was something that's needed. And before we go into what's going on now, I just wanted to introduce you guys and you guys explain your background to my audience, and let them know where you guys are from, where you guys reside at, and the things that you're doing now down in the South.
All right. So we can start out. Okay, very good. Well, I just want to let you know that I am James Morris.
And I'm Tommy Morris.
Yeah, and we are actually, we wear a lot of hats on top of being grandparents and great-grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
We're also pastors of a church, the Christ Anointed Church in Jackson, Mississippi. And so I guess that's, and then we also have a Christian bookstore that's here in Jackson, Mississippi. We have actually lived around in Mississippi for the entire time of our 47 years of marriage.
That's what's up. That's good.
That's what, and so I was also I'm a graduate of Jackson State University, and we would always go back and forth. Who went to the best school between your dad and myself? And we'll always say,
Alcorn and Jackson State rival.
Yeah, but anyway, and then your cousin auntie Tommy Joe. I think if she had gone to a HBCU school, more likely she would have probably gone to Alcorn.
Yeah,
Mhm.
probably.
But she
Or
wanted
Valley State.
Valley.
Or Valley State?
Had a whole lot,
Yeah,
lot
Valley
of
State.
pool in those
For those that
directions.
don't know, Mississippi Valley State for most of my Minnesota people. Same
Yeah,
school that Jerry Rice went to.
absolutely.
That's
And you know,
right.
I got a thing to say about Jerry Rice. My first assignment as a high school teacher was in a little town called Crawford, Mississippi.
That's where my
I think,
mom is from.
yeah, your mom's hometown.
Yep.
Well, Jerry actually grew up in that town, and
Yep.
Jerry was at the same school that I started teaching at.
Mhm.
And I was fortunate enough to be a music teacher at the B.L. Moore High School, and Jerry was there. And my first year as a teacher, I think I had just turned 22 years old, and I had all of the young people wanting to come and be students. He wanted to play the percussion. The year during the spring of the year, about like the way it is right now, about the same time of the year, one of your daddy's aunties, Aunt Doris, had a friend just so happened was my applied music teacher in Jackson State. And this particular teacher, during the time that they was actually having all of the different balls, the Sigma ball, the Alpha ball, and all the different balls, the Q ball, and every last one of them. Well, he would happen to be a Phi Beta Sigma fraternity member, and I was an Alpha fraternity member. And so he was asking some of his students, myself and a couple of the guys, said, "Listen, I have a friend's niece is coming to town this weekend, and I know that that you all might want to, if you want to, I can give you some tickets, and you can invite her, and you all can come and be a part of our Sigma ball." Well, one of my friends told him, and he said, "Well, I'm already going," because he was a Sigma. And by the way, the history behind the both of us is that three of us, I was an Alpha, he was a Sigma, and another one of our friends was a Kappa. And so the Kappa said, "Well, no, I'm not going to go to no Sigma ball." And I said, "Well, I'll go." And so I sported my black and gold when we got to go to the ball. But in the meantime, he asked me to go and meet the young lady. And so that's why I wound up going over to your Aunt Doris's house and meeting your cousin, Aunt Tommy Joe. And we met that night. I think it was like a Thursday night, and the ball was at Saturday night. But from that Thursday night until today, we always communicated every day. Yeah, every day, literally every day.
I never heard the story, so
yeah, man. And so after when I met her that Thursday, we called and talked that Thursday night. We talked that Friday. We went to the ball that Saturday. And from then on, it was on. We got 6 months later, we were married. 6 months later.
6 months later, we were married.
We were married.
6 months later.
We met in April and got married in November of the same year of 1974.
Wow.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history. That's right. It was amazing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, man. So I thought that, and now I also knew you. I knew your mom when I was in Jackson
Yep,
State.
you went to school with my mom. Yep.
Yeah, well, I was there with her, and we. As a matter of fact,
Tigers.
when your dad brought your mom down to meet the family here in Mississippi, and I walked in, I saw your mom, Alice. I said, "I know you." She said, "Yeah, I know you too, Jacksonia." I said, "You're right." And she said, "You play in the band?" I said, "Yeah, I sure do play in the band." And so we knew one another. I mean, it's like, and I was surprised. It's like the small world situation. Now I know a new cousin, brother, your dad, and now he's dating and getting ready to get married to a young lady. We all went to college together. So it's certainly a small world.
It is a small world.
Definitely. Yeah. And so, now I just learned, because my mom, so you start off by, you're talking about Jerry Rice. So I knew that my mom grew up with Jerry Rice's older siblings because they're both from Crawford, Mississippi, which is a small town, but I did not know your connection with Jerry Rice and you being a music teacher. So that was something I didn't, you learn stuff every day. I've been knowing y'all my whole life, and I did not know that story. So
absolutely.
I'm glad that you shared that. I'm glad that you shared that.
You're welcome.
And so yeah, these are my Mississippi roots here, and so it's good to hear these stories to start this off. And then cousin auntie Miss Tommy Joe, tell the people where you are originally from. My dad's hometown, but I would like for you to say it.
Yeah, well, I started out though in Chicago, no question about it. I think we could just about tell that story to every Mississippian can say they started in Chicago, Illinois. What can I say? Yep. Okay, Cook County Hospital, Chicago, Illinois. That's just what everybody would tell you. I think the boats dropped us all off at Chicago, Illinois, and all migrated to Mississippi and then back to the north. Okay, what can I say? But anyway, and then as a young girl, my dad and mom concluded that Chicago was a pretty rough place to grow up for a girl, and they didn't want us growing up, my sister and myself, to grow up in Chicago. So they asked my grandmother if she would rear us. Would she just take us on? They would take care of us if she would just be the one to be the caregiver. And my grandmother said, well, well, they can come on down here. And so they allowed us to come and live with them. And at the same time, your dad and his brothers were all there in Vicksburg at the same time. And so we all grew up together like brothers and sisters. So, you know, that's all I know as brothers. Close brothers would be your dad and his two brothers. So that's how it all began.
Good.
You know, amazing thing, Sean, they grew up like she had 3 older brothers, because your dad was the oldest, Lamar a year after him, Lionel a year after Lamar, and then she was a year after Lionel, and Lois was a year after her. So they were like stair step.
So all in a row.
Right in a row, absolutely.
And yeah, for those, you know, that, you know, some of my friends and acquaintances that watch this, my family calls me Sean. So I don't want that to throw y'all off, because everybody calls me Coop. And my family calls me Sean. So just to let y'all know, that's who they talking about, not to throw y'all off. But I'm glad that y'all shared the background. You know, it's good that we're connecting with the crazy times that's going on up here. So before we get into the meat of that, I just want you guys to explain the connection you have with Minnesota, or your first time visiting Minnesota, or some memories that you have of Minnesota.
Yeah, well, you know, Minnesota was just a beautiful place to visit. I think your dad took me to every lake that y'all have, and that's a lot of lakes. I just say, what in the world? Okay, and see, and this is the place. And then we saw where the Mississippi River began.
That's right.
When we came to Minnesota, we got a chance to see the place where Mississippi River starts.
We stepped over the Mississippi
River. That's right. That's exactly right. So that was really enjoyable to see and experience. But Minnesota was a real nice place. What we noticed about Minnesota is that they were not people, they were people of color. We saw a lot of interracial marriages and people together and all. And so we just said, wow, you know, there's no distinct black, white. That wasn't what we witnessed. We witnessed there was just a mixture, like a melting pot of people there in Minnesota, and that was our experience with Minnesota. When we first got there.
That's right. And I can remember the first time going up there, on top of in the summertime, having to put on a jacket at night because of the cold. It was. Other than that, we was able to make it. But I do remember your dad and your Uncle Lamar taking us out shopping because we thought we had run into I guess a mecca of being able to buy clothing, because there were no taxes on it.
No tax.
Everything was just whatever you saw, you could figure it up and say, oh, this is going to be $13.29.
That's right.
I remember going shopping. We bought a lot of stuff because your uncle told us, you better bring you plenty of money, and you can buy just all the clothing you need. So we bought a lot of things. And I also remember my experience there with the barbecue that y'all had. It was a place they took us to. It was it was like a fancy restaurant, but it had some of the best barbecue.
Barbecue.
You talking about Rudolph's.
Rudolph's, that's
Rudolph's.
it.
It's no longer there, but
it's no
that's what you're
longer.
talking about. No, it's
Oh,
been
man.
hey cousin, it's been gone for a while. It's been gone for probably
Well, look, yeah, you can dress up if you wanted to, but you're gonna have some barbecue sauce everywhere.
Yeah.
and the other thing I remember is talking about the people. I remember the people being very friendly.
Yeah.
I know being and from coming from the South, we the people in the South, we also we're good at greeting people. You know, you walk by a person, good morning, how you doing? Never met them before, and sometimes people in other states and cities, they think that's kind of impolite, or why you want to know how am I doing? You know, but that's just
think that you're being nosy.
Yeah, that's just the Southern hospitality about us. And I noticed that about the people there in Minnesota. Y'all were very friendly, both Black and white people. They're very friendly. Yeah. They I remember you couldn't, you wound up standing outside because they always insisted you go in first. And they hold the door for you, you know. I said, whoa, these are some friendly people up here.
Right.
And so that was my experience. You know, and it was just, you know, nice. I thought it was a nice place.
We felt at ease because rarely did you go to a place where Blacks and whites were looked to be couples and married and all that. People didn't stare. You know, they would stare at you down here in the South. You know, we're in a place where, but not in Minnesota. It was just a normal.
It was like the norm.
That was just
people,
especially as years went by, especially like when you went into the 80s. You know, it was actually the norm. You know, when Prince came on the scene, and you know he had all the different types of races in his bands and all of that. So
right,
yeah,
right.
Well, I'm really glad that you guys explained that, because I don't know if you guys saw my last episode that I did when I just was explaining how we got from Minnesota nice to Minnesota nightmare up here. And what you guys explained is how I grew up. Like what you guys said, like for the most part in Minnesota, people were nice. They would greet you. Everybody was together, you know. But as I gotten older in the city within the last 10 years, it's been tension, and things have been, you know, covered by Minnesota nice. And it's been a lot of passive aggressive racism, which is the opposite of what you see down in Mississippi, right? Because I explain to people, and I want you guys to go into this before I bring up the questions. I explain to people, you know, down south in Mississippi in particular, you know, people wear their emotions on their sleeves for the most part. You know, if people are racist, they'll let you know more. I mean, of course, I'm just talking about in general. They'll let you know where they stand, that they don't like you. And then the people that are not racist, they'll treat you like family almost. And see, up in Minnesota, it's different. It's really passive aggressive, which is basically smile in your face, but then behind your back, they're scheming, or they're doing certain things that's either talking about you or certain things that's going to affect you. So I just want you to explain more into what you guys were raised in Mississippi with the racism, and then I'll go into the questions I have with what's going on here in Minnesota.
Okay.
Well, you know, I came from Vicksburg, and Vicksburg just didn't take no stuff. So really, Black people were very much respected in Vicksburg. Okay. Because we marched. Civil rights was a big issue in Vicksburg, and we demanded the respect. We just demanded respect. That was all to that, and we got what we demanded in that regard. You know, not that, and you know, we didn't have to. We marched, and we had our meetings, and we did all those things just like all the other places, but it's kind of like people knew that they couldn't just treat us any kind of way. They just couldn't.
What you mean?
Well, your grandfather, Paul,
Yep.
Lyris's grandfather. So that was your great grandfather.
Yep.
Used to work at a place, and at that place, the man would always try to keep his son around so he could learn what Paul was doing. So Paul would always take the boy, and the man would leave the boy with him, and he would tell him, he said, go over there and do so and so and so. And while he had him doing that, he would be working so that the boy didn't sit there and just learn his job so that he could replace him,
right.
You know, just like that. But my grandfather just got tired of that, got tired of being afraid of whether or not he was going to have a job or whether they were going to treat him with respect like they should. And so he started his own business. So he was an entrepreneur. He was a furniture upholsterer, and he did it all for himself. He sent 10 children to school. He did it on the set, and 5 grandchildren he helped to raise with that salary of entrepreneurial salary, doing it on his own, doing it for himself. So he taught us that we didn't have to succumb to be under anybody to do anything.
Right.
Go start it for yourself. Go and be who God has called you to be. Go do what you do best, and people then will make a pathway to your goal.
Exactly. And you know, Cousin Tommy Joe, I'm glad you brought that up, because as a kid, coming from Minnesota, and when I would come down and spend summers or, you know, holidays, whatever, as a kid, I knew, how can I explain this? I knew somewhat of racial tension in Mississippi, because I would see Confederate flags, and then I would ask questions about that. And, you know, and then, you know, Vicksburg was a Civil War city, if those don't know. And the city still celebrates the Civil War, and you see even the cemetery is segregated. And so I had an idea of this, but we're so blessed, and I'm not bragging, but it's just the truth. Our family was so blessed. What you just explained about Paul, my great granddad, I knew at a young age, because I saw how my grandma Dear was treated and well respected all through the city. I thought, and remember, I told you guys this before, and you guys laughed because you knew what I was talking about. I thought my grandma was a star. And I really mean that, because I saw all different colors have respect for grandma.
Yes.
So even though I knew about the racial tensions, I knew that there was something about our family that even if someone's racist, they just can't ignore a greatness of Grandma Dear. And then I heard stories of Paul, because he died when I was about 2 or 3, but I would hear stories about Granny and Paul.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, my grandmother, every Memorial Day, okay? Because Memorial Day is that general recognizing of veterans and their service, you know, all veterans and their service in the war, and commemorating those who had passed on, but they were veterans. And every Memorial Day, guess where I would be? From a little girl of about 6 years old, my grandmother would have me at the Memorial Day celebration, which was, we were probably the only Blacks there, okay? The rest were whites there celebrating veterans, okay? And Granny had already prearranged for me to do a poem every year on the program for Memorial Day that said, I understand I'm a Negro. My face is Black, that's true. But from the dust, God made us all, so I know he made me too. Now I'm sitting up there with all the, look, nobody there but little flies in the ointment but us. And here I am declaring my Blackness on a program that my grandmother had arranged that I would do every year.
Wow.
Do you hear me? So, I mean, I've just never been afraid to just be able to speak up, say what it is I need to say, because our family was aware, like you said, a well-respected family, but they taught us that who we were and that we didn't have to bow down or cow down to anybody, because we were great just like anybody else. And
that triggered down with my parents and how they raised me.
That's right.
Even though being from Minnesota and growing up in the suburbs and being around at first with a lot of Caucasian people, my parents always let me know, never forget who you are, and this is where you come from, and still connecting me with my roots and Granny and Paul's teachings. So that was something real major. I'm so glad that you guys shared that, because I wanted that background and for my audience to understand about my family, where I come from, but just an example of how the South, how should I label it? The Southern hospitality and the morals, how that stayed with our people through the Great Migration, so-called, moving into Chicago and Detroit and the Twin Cities. So let's just dive in. Or go ahead. I'm sorry.
My background was a little bit different because where I grew up at, it was in an area where everybody knew that it was it was Klan territory.
Oh,
therefore, as a Black person, you had to make sure that you kind of stayed in your lane.
Mm-hmm. What town again?
It was right around Florence, Mississippi, Rankin County.
Okay.
And so we would actually, many times, I know when your cousin Tommy Joe, we got married, we would be going back home some Saturday evenings, and right at the main little traffic light on Highway 49 in Florence, there you would have the Klan out in full regalia,
full dress.
with their hoods and everything, passing out leaflets and pamphlets and collecting donations for the cause
at the traffic light.
And so I grew up in that. It was, and so we always was kept with step with, actually was said to us as children, know where you're going. Don't go anywhere that nobody try to, fool you to go there. Stay away from around the white people, your children around it, because all they're gonna do is get you in trouble, and then they're gonna back out and lie on you. So we really kept to ourselves. We lived in an area that was predominantly white, and we were the only Black family living in that area. It was almost like, because my dad was known in the town of Star as being a very good person, and he was very skilled in work in different kinds, because he could do concrete work and even building and certain things. He built our home, and so he was respected, and especially the white people respected him, and so we were my daddy's children, and so they kind of looked. But then we still was told, do not trust them, because when you hanging around out there with them, you get too close and friendly, if anything go wrong, it's not going to be them. They're going to put the blame on you. So we kind of understood that growing up. As a child, I never learned how to swim because there were no swimming pools in our community or anywhere. And so we dared not go to a pond where swimming could be going on or could go on at, because we were somewhat fearful that while you're out there, some of the good old boys would come up out there and they may try to drown you in that pond. So we never went with swimming. I never learned how to swim.
And we had a swimming pool in our community, and I swam quite frequently. So see, we just came from two different places, right in the same state.
Yeah.
But there was different things going on in where we live.
Yeah. But they had great respect for my father because he was such a well-respected person, skilled worker. I had a grandfather, though, my father's father, was respected too, because everybody thought he was crazy because they didn't know what he would do. He's subject to do whatever he's gonna do, and then they'd have to wound up, taking him out, but yet he's already done what he was gonna do. So that was the kind of thing we grew up around and with. And so, but anyway, all of that worked together, as we say, because we love of God, and it worked for our good, because now it's showing up in our children as well.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, cousin James, because that same teaching that you had at that time with extreme actions and sights that you saw is some of the same teachings that my parents taught me about, when I'm out hanging out, I will get blamed for the group activity because I just naturally stand out. And as a young kid, I never understood that, because you just want to play with the kids in the neighborhood and whatever. But at a young age, I said it in my last podcast episode, I said I had I guess you want to call it a grown man's discussion. As a little kid, I had that understanding. And then that's what, you know, stuck in my mind all the way up to now. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because I just see that same teaching being passed down generation to generation. So,
it was that survival teaching you how to survive, you know,
especially as a Black man.
Yeah, as a Black man, no doubt about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm glad that we talked about the backgrounds, because it's just going to go into the meat of here. So in the last episode, I just explained about, you know, yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago, was the 5th anniversary of Prince passing away. And when Prince died, the Twin Cities all came together. The whole state of Minnesota came together in the street, wearing purple, celebrating the life of Prince, singing songs together, outdoor. Like, they would just shut down the street and it would be outdoor concerts, and it was all cool, and everybody was good. And then I explained after that the events that led us to what's happening now. You know, about 3 months after Prince passing, you had Philando Castile that same year. And then the next year, you had a Somali officer killing an Australian Caucasian woman in Minneapolis, and he's in prison now. And then, of course, George Floyd, and now Daunte Wright, which is basically in my backyard, because I grew up in the Brooklyn Park, which is right next to Brooklyn Center. And my mom taught Daunte Wright's, I think, brother. So she knows the parents. So I wanted to ask you guys, how does Minnesota and the country in general, how do we heal? How do we heal logically, psychologically, and most important, spiritually? Like, you know, you guys explain how you guys grew up, and seeing, especially you, Cousin James, what you just explained. You saw the Klan literally at a young age. Yes. And you saw a lot of horrific things. So how now do we heal from these just crazy times?
Well, you know, I think that you started out.
I think that recognizing our humanity is where we've all got to start. I mean, Caucasian, Chinese, Japanese, Black, whatever we are, we gotta recognize that we're human first. We all are human first. Put the color aside, put the cultures aside, and just recognize that first we're human. And if we could come to that logical understanding, then it'll make it easier for us to empathize with one another as we are going through things. Because when you see me human to human, and you're empathizing with what I'm going through as a human, you got to be different than just at what I'm going through as a Black person, or what I'm going through as a Caucasian, or as a Japanese. You see, so the first thing is to recognize our human similarities, our human likenesses. And then we go from there, being able to now empathize with what one another is going through.
You know, in actuality, I think that has really been the cause all the time. This is how and why I believe why we have racism, because people they fail to recognize that, you know, and we like to say this in Christendom, that not all people that they are God's children in the sense, but all people are God's creation. See, when you say about God's children, we want to say what we believe, that those who accept and confess Christ as their Savior, then they are God's children. But then God's creation is every person that walked the face of this earth. And we all are one race, not two races. We're the human race. This is the human race. We just happen to be in different shades of hues of color and pigmentation, and some of us darker than the other, but we're all one. And until we recognize that, and I think if we begin to recognize that, the healing will begin. And it would be the solution that we've always needed all the time. Even when the time, how could slavery be if the people who was wanting to enslave African American people knew and recognized them as being human? It couldn't be. There's no way it would be. Right. And so the same thing would happen now. You know, how do you do the things to people that you wouldn't normally do to yourself? If you recognize yourself as being a human being,
right,
then why not, if you recognize others, you can't do those things and talk that way about those, about another individual, if you recognize it as being equal and being human beings, God's creation.
I mean, when we all lose loved ones, I mean, we all hurt. Everybody pains. That's a human emotion. That's just a human thing, okay? So, I mean, if we could ever learn that, I mean, come to that understanding that we're human, and then be willing to empathize with others as they are going through stuff.
Yes.
Then we'll find out that we have more things in common than we have differences.
Yeah. And I think
more things in common.
Right. And I think what happens with, you know, nothing is all. So I think what happens with some people that are from the opposite side, that are in a more powerful stance or whatever, I think their job is to dehumanize.
Yes.
You know, what you guys just said is just common sense, what you guys just explained. But when somebody is so focused on dehumanizing you and try to put you in a category that they want to have a narrative for you, you know, I think it's to justify the things that they think or do. Do you see what I'm saying? So,
yes, I see exactly where you're coming from.
And it takes more energy to dehumanize somebody.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And you can never be superior if you don't have an inferior person. If you haven't created somebody inferior, you can never be superior. So yours is to want to get to be superior, then you got to make sure somebody else is inferior. Okay?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the way that works.
That's not human. In other words, make them non-human.
Non-human.
Just make them non-human.
Dehumanize them. That's what I was agreeing with, his dehumanizing theory, because that's for somebody to feel here and to somebody else to make somebody else feel here.
And to have them in your control.
That's the only way that some people feel like they can feel high, is that they make others low, and that they can step on them to get up high where they want to be.
And when you do,
that's the same old theory that the bully uses on the schoolyard.
Yeah. And I
think use that same theory. Yeah.
Say that again, cousin.
I said that's the same theory that a bully uses on the school ground yard, out on the playground.
He got to make
himself big, and everybody else little and not equal to him. And so that way he can stay in his position as being the bully, getting people to do what he want to do.
Yeah, to be in control.
Yeah, be in control. That's
right. Be in control. Because I can't remember where I heard this from, but somebody was explaining really what racism is, and they said something like it's the competition for power and resources.
Okay,
that's it.
And so if the mentality is I have to be in competition all the time, so I'm going to do things at every measure to make somebody that's not me less than, or so I can have something that's beneficial to me. So going back to, let's just dehumanize and create a narrative that's on them that, you know, it's going to be hard for them to shake out of that.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's right. Now, psychologically now, if we have everybody to learn how to think like Martin Luther King thought. This was a famous quote from Martin, okay? He said, either we'll all learn how to live together as brothers, or we will perish together as fools. Do you understand me?
Mm-hmm.
See, psychologically, if we never learn how to think like we are all a human race and we are brothers and sisters of the human race, then we will perish together as fools. We will not ever be a help to one another. We will all be going in different directions, and no man is an island. So you can never live to yourself. If you can't breathe, if we can't all come together and do it together, then we'll separate and we will die separately.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he doesn't know that he's really killing himself. You know, when he tried to kill his brother, he's really killing himself. And so that's why it's so important that to understand that every person on this earth is a human being.
That's right.
And they have to be treated in that manner.
Well, I mean, what you guys explained before I even asked the questions about Paul and Granny, and then me bringing up my grandma Dear, you know, you guys explained about how they were still respected, mm-hmm. even by people that might have been so-called racist. But when you see something that's great, it's like you can't deny it. Mm. Like, you know, like if I'm going to use a sport analogy, right? Mm-hmm. You guys know me. I love Minnesota sports. I represent all the teams. So I'm a diehard Vikings fan. It's hard, but I'm a diehard Vikings fan. So we hate the Packers. Those are our rivals. We hate them with a passion. But when I watch Aaron Rodgers, even though I hate him, I mean, sports-wise, if you ask me who's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, I say Aaron Rodgers. Because I see the greatness, even though he's wearing a green and gold uniform, and that just makes me sick inside as a Viking fan. But, you know, I'm just using a sports analogy. Yes, I can see that his greatness, or me being a diehard Lakers fan growing up and hating Larry Bird, but I saw greatness. Mm-hmm. So I have to just be honest, because I can see, well, Larry Bird works just as hard as Magic Johnson. They're both great. Mm-hmm. So bringing the sports analogy to real life, if someone hates us, but they see that we're always doing our thing, like Paul was good with his hands, wore many hats, was well respected, had his family in order, big family, everybody was well mannered. You can only respect that, because it would take more energy, and correct me if I'm wrong, it will take more energy to try to dehumanize somebody that keeps on doing the right thing, spiritually, logically, psychologically. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but
you're absolutely right.
No, you're right.
You're absolutely right, because, and I think that's one of the things that you bring your grandmother up, being an English teacher, and she was one of the best English teachers.
Best.
And so whether you were Black or African American or Caucasian, all parents wanted their children to get the best teacher, who happened to be your grandmother. And so she had something they wanted. And that was that greatness that was in her, the ability to be one of the best teachers that will walk through, actually, I won't say Vicksburg, but even probably in the world. She was one of the best teachers around. I mean, you was there and went to her funeral service, and how all of these students got up, and every last one was
that was powerful. It was literally almost the whole auditorium.
That's right.
And then also what I remember about that day, and I was trying to make sense out of it, right? Mm-hmm. But it goes to Cousin Tommy, to what you said about the family being so well respected. Because I noticed the mayor honored Grandma with having the state flag at half staff, or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
What's the correct term?
It was half staff.
Half staff. That's the correct term.
In honor of her.
Yeah, and
that was on the state capitol building.
And that was at the state capitol building,
at the state capitol building, and it messed with me, because Mississippi state flag is a Confederate flag, basically. But I was just like, when I heard that and I saw that, I was just telling myself, I'm just like, wow, like I knew my grandma was important, but her works and her spirit was so powerful that it crossed racial lines, and it forced racist people to see the greatness what we're talking about. And so that was something, you know, like I try to wrap my head around, even when I went back home and I was just meditating on that. I just like, you know, and I'm not saying that to maybe we need to act a certain way to get accepted by other people, because you should act the way that's best for you and your loved ones. But just seeing that, you know, I think that's just a tool that crosses racial lines in almost any aspect.
And, you know, and I think what we're also saying is that when, as a society or as a people, we begin to look at everybody equally and that they are human, you begin to see a whole lot of greatness in a whole lot of people. No matter what their nationality or what their ethnicity is, you'll see greatness in them because God has created us that way. You know, we got some great. Every last one of us, we've been created to be successful and to succeed. Even the drunkard on the street.
Well, there's some good in the worst of us.
That's it.
And there's some bad in the best of us. So, you know, we're all equal on that plane, you know. Yeah. We're all equal.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I had a question about what are some things that you know you guys saw or learned in the past that can help and guide us now. I mean, you guys tapped into it a little bit, but let me just elaborate on the question. Let me be more specific. So, for example, I always use this example. There's a young brother I know. I used to work with him, and he served in the military. And when George Floyd happened, and like I said on my last episode, like seeing videos on repeat over and over of us being gunned down, or especially the George Floyd video of him literally just being choked to death. It psychologically does something to you. And this young brother, he called me and he said he didn't have he felt like he didn't have anybody else positive to reach out to. And he wanted to go loot and riot because he was so angry because he served the country. And so I was taking a nap, and I said, you know what? I said, I'm just going to come get you, and I'm just going to show you a different option. I'm not going to say you wrong. I said, I'm going to hear you out. I said, please don't leave. I'm going to come pick you up, and I'm going to show you a different option. And so I just picked him up and I took him down to the memorial. And then there was some Israelite brothers speaking who sometimes I listen to. I don't believe everything they say, but you know, they were there for healing and education. And he listened to some of them, and it just so calmed him down, and it just opened his eyes up to something that he never would even thought about. So the reason why I brought that up is the youth that I notice is they're a whole different generation. They grew up on social media. They're used to having things real quick. And I just want to know, what are some things that we learned in the past, you guys learned in your past, I learned in my past. What are some lessons that was taught then that can help and guide some of those young brothers and sisters now? Because a lot of them just feel it's hopeless. They just feel hopeless.
Well, you know, I think one of the things that we had, and even though when your cousin Tommy Joe went to live with her grandparents, she had the parents in the house as her main grandparents, as her main mentors. Okay. They would talk to them every day. My dad, he worked on a public job, but he was home in the evening time. He would talk with us. We would go, he would show us how to do things. My mother she was a homemaker. She was at home all the time. And so I think what has to happen is that we gotta, at some point or another, get back to that adult person or that mentor kind of training and teaching of our young people. Get them to, to let go of their social media for a while. If it's no more than 30 minutes a week or an hour a week, and get back to the basics of understanding just like you did the boy the other day when you took him to listen to something different. There's another way. Before we had Facebook and all the other social media outlets, we had conversation. Yeah. We had sitting down, talking to your parents, working with your parents. I wonder, how did I learn how to the work ethics, being able to go out and work hard and do what you want, what you need, in order to get what you needed, and then even to get what you want. My dad was the first one to teach me that. We would go to the field. We had gardens, and what they call the bigger gardens were called fields. We had a lot of vegetables and things in there. You'd go there and work, and you would spend all day cultivating and sometimes planting in those fields. But your dad would be right out there with you, or your mom would be right there with you. So you learn how to work with your hands. You learn how to see things grow, and then to use those things once they mature. You would gather your vegetables, and then you would eat those, and your sweet potatoes in the fall, and your sugar cane to make syrup, and your peanuts to roast at night and sit around the fire and talk. And then, so you learn. I think that's what I believe going to have to happen, is that we got to get back to some of the old-fashioned human to human teachings to help our young people come out of these clouds, literally, these eye clouds, come out of these clouds and come back to earth and begin to recognize that I am a human being. I can't be snuffed out and life put back in me the next second. No, I am a human being. I was created here for a purpose, on purpose, to do the will and the work for God and to glorify Him. And so I think that's what I think has to happen. And we got that as the generation I grew up in, and your aunt grew up in, your dad grew up in, and even you grew up in. You got that. You got that cultivation and that mentoring. I was at your dad's funeral. He talked about how he was the Boy Scout leader and the Cub Scout leader and the basketball team coach and so forth, and softball coach. That mentor, that's what he was doing. He was mentoring you guys. And so in doing so, he not only helped you, but he helped your peers and the friends around you. Yeah. And so that's what I think we have to get back to that again.
My best friend flew all the way from Japan to the funeral because he's like, that's my dad too, That's right. And just that connection. Yeah. So that goes to what you were saying. Yeah. And then just going off of that. So could it be said we need to get the youth and bring it back to the days of it takes a village to raise a child?
Okay.
Just to label what you said. You know what I'm saying? Like the community, like even when I would come to Mississippi as a kid, I knew that this was Miss Lovely over there. And she waved and, oh, you in town? And, and everybody would speak and, and you knew that this person occupation was this or whatever. And they looked out for one another. Could we say that we need to try to bring that back? And I know it's hard because we have to battle it with social media and things, but.
Yeah. Let me just make a comment. That sounds like the same kind of question that people come in our bookstore, Christian bookstore, and always ask, oh, shouldn't we put prayer back in schools? And I said, well, no. They said, what are you saying that we shouldn't put prayer back in schools? I said, because now, if prayer comes back to school, it's got to be everybody's prayer. See, it used to be certain prayers that we acknowledge were Christian prayers. They were, But now you can't go in back into the school with that. We're going to have to do Hindu prayers. We're going to have to do Buddha prayers. We're going to have to do whatever prayers that you got people in that. So no, pray at home and let your children hear you pray and do prayer with them at home, because now as a general rule, it can't be back in the general populace like it was back then. Okay. So.
And even the village is broken now.
And even the village is broken.
Yeah.
Okay. See, we got problems like this thing is looking just about now like an onion. And if you start peeling an onion, man, you're gonna keep peeling. Oh, you got layers of problems. Oh, come on. Yep. And it'll make you cry. The layers, just keep peeling. Keep peeling the onion back and you'll cry.
Tears.
You'll cry real tears. You keep pulling that onion back. But that's
I get the analogy.
Yeah, we got problems. We got onion problems. We got layers of problems. We got problems in our families. We got problems in our community. Our home is broke. Homes are broken. Our community is broken. Our nation is somewhat broken.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got, just keep peeling back and you're going to keep. So it has got to be a concerted effort that we do in order to start helping this to heal. Well, how do we do it? How do we help this situation to do better than what it's doing? And we conclude that the mentoring is the way. Each one teach one. We used to say it like that. We used to say, spot a family that needs something that you've got to give and hang with that crew. Disciple them, help them to get to the level where you know they should be. Or that you could help them to be based on your experiences of where you've been and some of the things you've seen. Help them. Don't leave them in the shape you found them in. Help that family now to do it. But don't try to cure the world. Go find you one family.
That's right.
One person, one young man, one family. Help that family get what. And when you see you've got them help to get on their feet, now go find another family and tell them to go find a family. Now that's two families that's getting ready to be helped.
Right.
And then you do it and just keep letting it duplicate itself. And before you know it,
it's like creating,
have this thing change.
It's like creating your own social media without the technology. Basically, what you're saying. It's what we used to do.
Yes.
That's how we did it. And social media, that concept that is being used today is very powerful. But you become friends with him, they become friends with you. Every now and then somebody suggests on Facebook that this person would be a good friend. Why don't you reach out to them and accept them as your friend? So all of that helps to bring back what we believe is some of the things that is missing in our world. Certainly within our nation, where people are not, they're missing out. And this will be the first time where, I put it this way, this will be the time if we can come back with it, thinking and recognizing everybody is human. And nobody is to degrade another human being, another one of God's creations, creatures. Then you'll see it's going to work better than it was working in the past.
Because because what I notice when things like this happen, a lot of people go to their, what's the correct word? They go to their corners. They go to their racial corners because it's comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Naturally, you're going to do that because you love who you are. You relate to people that are from your background or your culture. So you naturally are comfortable with that. But it's just like when something happens, something that's obvious like George Floyd, some of my white acquaintances or, classmates that I went to high school with, or, I just saw rhetoric that I was shocked. I was a little, well, actually not. I was shocked earlier when I heard some of the rhetoric during the Trayvon Martin situation, but and then now I'm not that surprised. But I just see that people always go with their comfort zone and go to their racial corners, and it's like they don't. It's like they have to make an excuse to dehumanize.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
That's right. Here's the thing that really always puzzled me. How could you take a statement that Black people's lives matter too, and make it something that is negative? Because if you look at the evidence, and you see, just like we saw on when the brother was killed, Floyd was killed the other week, and it looked like it was just done with no kind of regret, or I'm snuffing the life out of a human being. That you should be able to see that.
Yeah.
That it appears that the life of a Black individual or African American person does not matter. Everybody ought to know that. We are not saying that blue lives does not matter. We're not saying that all lives should not matter, but we all ought to come together and say, wait a minute. I know we'll want to include everybody, but this one, it's obvious that something has happened in our psyche that we can think that it's all right, and we can make it negative to say, yeah, wait a minute, Black lives ought to matter. We ought to not be the kind of people that would want to just snuff out a Black person's life and think that it is all right, so to speak.
Right.
Yes, that I think is one of the things that we have to get to and bring people to the realization, and it take the individual. Every person have to make that decision.
It does.
Decide for themselves. Yes.
Do you think when you hear people say, you know, like when we cry out, because it's a cry out that Black lives matter. It's a cry out, right? And when people say all lives matter or blue lives, do you think that's just like a defense mechanism to just be defensive and not to admit that something that's obviously wrong?
Well, I think you're right. I think that's one of the reasons. You know, if you don't want to be wrong in the fact that you know that it is a problem, it's an issue, but yet it benefits me.
It benefits, right?
Yeah, it benefits. I put me again. We back to the same stage again. We were talking a while ago about to dehumanize this person, this group of people, has a tendency to want to think that it would raise us up to a higher level.
Yeah.
Rather than, but if we brought everybody up to the same level, you'll see that you're just as much a human on that level as you are and were on the other level of thinking you were so superior and others were so inferior.
You know, let me say too, Sean, we've been here before. This is nothing new. Okay.
Right.
All right. Been here before. Generations ago. Before that. Okay. Been here, done this. Okay. But I don't think that we have ever, as people, sat down to declare what is it that we can come to a common agreement on, one thing. See, we used to have some common sense stuff when we were coming up. There was just some common sense thing. Everybody knew, we called it common sense. That was just common sense. Don't you know that? That's common sense. There's no more common sense. Okay? So in the place of common sense, what's got to happen, especially you young people, have got to sit down and decide what one or two things are we going to agree to start living out. What are we going to agree on? Because I'm going to tell you, the scriptures declare in Matthew 18:19, it says that wherever two shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done of them for my Father. Shall be done. Now, what part of shall do you not understand? If we come together and find some places to agree, we got more agreeing places than we have differences, but just find one. And God will come in and work through that one thing that we've at least agreed on and make us stronger for the one place that we can hold solid. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
Because that can become our common sense.
Amen.
That can become our common belief. And
Right.
when we get a common belief, and for where it is that we want to stand, then we'll be able to, not only after that one, then we'll start seeing another common place that we can,
Exactly.
oh, okay, and then another common, and after a while we'll have the onion that will start peeling back.
Amen.
Such that wherever we get to a place in the onion, we can say, well, our belief on that is, because we've all kind of synchronized our beliefs.
Mhm.
Okay, we have synchronized our common beliefs. We have got to stop and sit down and rationalize some common places where we can all agree, and it makes that thing more powerful, because now we all got our hands in there on that and saying,
Yep.
yeah, we can do that.
And you
Now,
see,
that's
and you
what's got to
somewhat
happen.
see that with, I mean, to a certain extent, you see that when you are working a job. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's problems in jobs and work and racial stuff. But for the most part, you guys are there to do an assignment or the task, and everybody needs to have a certain status so they can
Yes.
get the job done. It's just like the movie Hidden Figures.
Right.
When the woman always had, Terrell Hicks always had to walk all the way to the other side of the campus to go use the bathroom.
Mhm.
And then that was affecting the work because she always had to come late.
Mhm.
And then Kevin Costner realized, well, that's just really stupid because that's affecting this. And it's
Right.
affecting, you see what I'm saying? So,
Yes.
Mhm.
so I that goes to your point.
Yes.
Yes.
And I will say this is that we know it works because we've seen it too many times. World War I, World
Yeah.
War II, everybody was together. I don't care black or white. We all was in favor of being the winner of the taking over and winning that war, because they were working together. They all, it's like what's the slogan? It says teamwork makes the dream work.
That's right.
Mhm.
When you all come together. So I agree. When you come together with this, find a place to agree. We'll find out that it will be the most powerful thing that can happen.
Just that one place.
Yeah.
That one place will make you strong in that place.
Yes.
And then you found another place, and then another place. And before you know it, the whole package is stronger because we've found places that we can stand, and it shall be done
That's
for us
it.
by our Father which is in heaven. He said it'll be done.
Yes.
What part of shall do you not understand? The S, the H, the A, or the LL? God said he could take care of it when
Yes.
we find a place to agree and stand together.
Yeah. Right. No,
Amen.
exactly.
Amen.
I know, and it's just hard to. It's so simple. It's what you guys are saying is just common sense, like you said,
Yes.
Cousin Tommy Joe. It's common sense, and it's so simple, but it's hard to, I don't know, either deliver the message where it can get to the youth, number one, but the youth follows the older generation, and they see a lot of what the older generation does and have done is so incorrect. So it's sort of like they're confused to a certain extent. But I agree with you though, cousin, that we have to drill what's common and find the one thing that can bring people together. That's just undeniable. That's just undeniable.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because I think
yeah.
with a lot of great empires like Rome and all that, they fell internally.
Mm-hmm.
They fell internally because they were just at each other consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it can't stand.
Yes, right.
Nothing that you
divided
against itself cannot stand.
Cannot
so
stand.
you gotta come together and agree on something. And there may have to be millions of meetings going on all over the United States to come up with some centralized agreements, some things that we all say that we're going to govern ourselves by in regard to how to bring this thing better together.
Right.
We're going to have to do it. Now,
Right.
It's going to take young adults. It's going to take young children. It's going to take older adults, because all of us got to brainstorm, take a little from the old, take a little from the middle age, and take a little from the new, and then bring it together. And guess what? We'll have something great.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I think the music industry could really help out here because people are somehow they actually are drawn to music, and
it's a universal language.
And I remember back in the days when you had like I said, the Marvin Gaye's that was saying what's going on. And they would sing songs of the Temptations, songs of protest, but songs that were bringing people together, not as so much as pro, but songs that were positive. I think that when when the music industry can begin to get back to those type of, they agree on the same thing that say we decide this is what we're going to agree on, the one thing, and then put music to it. And I think you'll find that that's going to help us out a whole lot. They can do a lot to get this thing going and moving. Sure will, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I remember having a conversation with one of my really good friends, and I told her, because this was the day after what happened to Daunte Wright, and people were looting, and I just said, I think we can't always point the finger at the young generation, because they just going to tune, they're just going to shut down and just tune us out. I think if we have a different approach sometimes and put our arm around them and first show them that we're in it together, I think that can go a longer way. Then the lesson can come. Do you guys agree with that?
Oh yeah. No doubt about it. Young people are full of
solutions.
Yeah, they really are. You got to challenge them for the solution.
Yeah.
How do you fix this? And then brainstorm and let them talk and let them brainstorm. I'm telling you,
you can learn.
You'll get some answers. You will get some good stuff coming from the young people when you let them do that. But you know what, that general one place to agree might very well be centered around do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Yeah,
now,
I mean, it's something that's basic.
However, this generation, some of them have adopted do unto others before they do it to you. See that's where some of them have gone. Okay, with that. Yeah. But if we could just recapture that do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Would you want somebody to kill your mom? Would you want somebody to take out your dad? Would you want somebody? What? No, you wouldn't want that. So let's all stand in agreement that one of the best places for us to agree is that we do unto others as we have them do unto us, as we want folk to do to us.
Absolutely.
Look in the mirror, put your face in the mirror, and would you want that to be you? Whatever Sean is going through in Minnesota, would you want that to be you? No, we wouldn't want that to come here. We would not want what y'all have just gone through. Lord God, help us to not have to ever go through what y'all have gone through there.
Right, because what happens when it happened, especially in Minnesota, because it's like, oh, now it's happening in Minnesota, like that doesn't happen here. You see what I'm saying? And then like it's just crazy. And now we're the eye of the world, which we used to be the eye of the world because of great things, because of Prince, because of Kirby Puckett, because of the Minneapolis sound as a whole. Morris Day and Mint Condition and Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis. These were the things that we were known for to the world. And like when you explained all the lakes that we have, like these were the things. But now it's a dark cloud, and now we're the eye of the world of detention.
Sometimes it's where the dark cloud is, you can bring out just a little light and it dispel that darkness. I think the place that it could really start could be Minnesota, where you got this dark cloud hanging over, and because the world is looking at Minnesota right now. Right. We mentioned a while ago about this one thing, one place that we can all come together and agree. We start right there. I think that even the young people agree that they don't want anyone to disrespect them, so they need to understand that respect is very important and vital. So then now we're all going to agree. We're not going to really disrespect you, and we don't want you to disrespect us. And that way it's a give and take. It's a give and take. And that way I think, and
respect is a good word to start on, to make that the one word place for agreement, because everybody desires respect.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Everybody does.
The prisoner in jail want respect. I mean, they got a whole system set up on respect. Okay.
Many murders has taken place in our community, you know, black on black crime, because of someone thought they was disrespected.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so I think that will be a good play area of agreement. To start right there. So how does disrespect look? What does it look like? What would be some of the opposites so that we can show respect? What does that look like? Believe it or not, many people forget what respect looks like.
Yeah.
You know,
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, they can describe disrespect, but what does respect look like?
They think it's a one-way aggression. They think it's a one-way street.
Absolutely.
And it's really a two-way street, because it's a give or take. And that goes back to what you guys brought up. And when we were talking about dehumanizing, you know, it's just, we need, like you brought up, Cousin James, about we're all God's creation. So when we're dealing with each other and our differences, even though we have differences, know that that's God that I'm talking to. Meaning you were created, you was created for something, and it's different from me, but I see the human in you.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? And I think, especially in our community, it has gone to thinking that I'm just better than you and I don't see God in you. And so now I'm scared, or I just have all this anger towards that person. But I think if you notice the godly spirit in somebody, or just know that it's there, it's just you just having differences, I think that would change a whole lot of dynamics. So, but yeah, man, this was great. I'm so glad that we did this, because like I told you guys, you know, even though we are rejoicing of the verdict of George Floyd, the city's still hurting. You know, I've seen a lot of divide, and I'm glad that we were able to talk about this, and I want this to be a tool for the people that in Minnesota and other people that will just watch my podcast, because that's why I created this podcast, to shed light and try to steer things into a positive way. So I'm glad that we were able to talk about this. I'm glad that you guys talked about your background, and I learned some stuff as a family member. But
the pleasure is all ours.
Say that again.
The pleasure is all ours.
Yeah, I had so much fun. Also, I just wanted to promote you guys too. The name of their bookstore is Milestone Bookstore in
Christian
Pearl, Mississippi, which is like a suburb of Jackson, Mississippi.
Yes.
So any Minnesota people, I know I got a lot of friends that have family members in Mississippi. So I know they go down there quite often. So
but we're on the website too. Look, we're on the website, so that means we're in Minnesota. We're on the website.
Right.
It's Milestone Christian Books.
Oh yeah, it's a great store.
Great
store. And it's on the website. So if they want to shop that way, they can do it. They sure can.
You can email us, because we get a lot of emails from different people. Milestone Books, the old-fashioned at AOL.com.
That's right.
And they can get right into it. We see that, we answer and look at that email every day. And so, we'll be glad to let you know what we got and how we can help you.
I really appreciate y'all coming here, and it means a lot to me. It really does, for you guys to shed your knowledge and your information, and how my city and my state can heal, and how we can just heal as a country.
Amen.
As a whole.
Amen.
As a whole. So, and for those that don't know, my family, we always do this when we see each other.
That's right.
We leave each other. but we say
Watson's
in
in love for life. That's it.
Again,
Watson's in love for life.
That's right.
I love you guys, cousin Uncle
too,
James, cousin Auntie Tommy Joe.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. And I will be in touch with y'all probably for the next family meeting that we have on Zoom.
Yeah.
So love you and
love you
guys
too.
take care. And you have a
All
blessed
right.
night.
Take care now.
All right. Love you.
All right, baby.
All right. Take care.
Okay now.